The year is 1066, and the king, Edward the Confessor, has died. Not so much of a problem. We have an heir lined up which is... Oh, that's right. We kind of don't. Hopefully no one in Norway or Normandy is going to get ideas of invasion. That is exactly what happened. Today, we'll look to the north in Yorkshire with the Battle of Stamford Bridge. Upon hearing of the death of Edward the Confessor, King of Norway, Harald Hardrada, looked back onto his ancestry and the agreement made between Harthacnut, King of Denmark until 1042, and Magnus I of Norway. The statement read that, should one die, then the other would inherit all the deceased land. This led him to have a claim, in some form, to the throne of England, as Harthacnut ruled from 17th of March 1040 until his death. Once Magnus I died in 1047, Harold now had his claim as well, but he knew that the invasion of England would not be peaceful. This did not help with Edward the Confessor keeping all of the potential successors at bay. This included Harold, along with Sweyn and a certain bastard called William, Duke of Normandy. In 1058, a fleet under control of Harold's son, Magnus II, would help the Welsh raid into English lands. While it had some limited success, Harold couldn't fight Denmark and England simultaneously. That was until Edward died. Harold Godwinson would ascend the throne, and plans were starting to be drawn. Far in the fjords of Norway, Harald Hardrada's brother, Tostig Godwinson, former Earl of Northumbria, appeared with the hope of regaining his titles and land. Not only did he go to Harold, but also Sweyn and William. Harold knew that Northumbrian lands would be the best for an invasion, making Tostig valuable to Harold. This is where details get a bit foggy. It's said that Tostig sent Kopstig, another exile, in his place to meet Harold, while Tostig remained in Normandy, hoping to have a joint invasion with Harold and William. In spring 1066, construction began on the fleet to invade, which would all assemble in Solent. This would be completed in September, including the Ormen, Harold's flagship. One last thing before Harold left. He proclaimed his son, Magnus II, King of Norway. He would stop in the Shetland and Orkney Islands to collect additional troops, taking his force up to between 7,000 to 9,000 troops. In total, he would have between 200 and 300 longships, 10 to 15,000 men, 3 noblemen, and 1 dream. They would meet their first resistance at Scarborough, when Harold would order the town to be burnt after a refusal of surrender. At this site, more Northumbrian towns would surrender, and on the 20th of September, Harold and Tostig would arrive at Rykal. News reached the Earls of Mercia and Northumbria, and they sent an army to oppose Harold, meeting 2 miles south of York for the Battle of Fulford. Harold successfully crushed the force and captured York on the 24th. It would also be the day that Godwinson arrived in Tadcaster, 7 miles from where the Norsemen had anchored. After some reconnaissance, he started to plan his counterattack, and marched through the city of York all the way to Stamford Bridge. The morning of the battle, a lone rider crossed the field to speak with Harold and Tostig, offering the latter to defect in return for titles. When asked what Godwinson would give to Hardrada, the man replied, 7 feet of English land, as he is taller than other men. This was, indeed, a threat. Hardrada was impressed by the rider's boldness, and asked who he was. Tostig replied, Harold Godwinson himself. The English army appeared with surprise to the Norse, but was delayed for needing to pass through the bridge, which could only be crossed single file. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, along with the chronicles of Henry of Huntingdon, wrote that 1 man would defend the bridge, holding up the entire English army on his own. He would slay 40 soldiers and was stopped by an Englishman floating under the bridge, who speared the warrior from below, proving a fatal attack. This delay by the lone warrior allowed the Norsemen to form a shield wall. Harold's army poured across the bridge, forming a line short of the Norse wall as they locked shields and charged. While the battle is called Stamford Bridge, the bridge only played a minor role as the battle raged on for hours. The Norse had arrived with little to no armour, and that was now proving a poor choice. As the hours raged on, the Norseman line began to break, allowing the English to break through. Harold Hardrada was killed by an arrow to his windpipe, and Tostig lay amongst the dead. The Norwegian forces would be routed and almost annihilated as the battle became an English victory. King Harold would accept a truce with the survivors, including Harold's son Olaf and the Earl of Orkney, Paul Thorfinson. They were free to leave and pledged not to attack the English again. They fled to Orkney with only 24 ships being required out of the full armada to transport them. The following spring, Olaf returned to Norway, which was now divided between himself and Magnus II. Harold had little time to rest, as a Norman invasion touched down in Pevensey, Sussex, under William the Bastard. Godwinson had little choice but forcing his men to march all the way down to the abbey, which is located in the modern town of Battle.